I'm Annie Briard. I'm an artist working in video, photo, installation, and different things from time to time. I've always kind of felt like an outsider in both languages. Yeah, because French people always tell me, oh, you have an English accent, you're English, you know? And whenever I speak in English, they're like, oh, you're a little Frenchy or whatever, right? So it's always like, there's always kind of been that outside, and that, I think, comparing of two worlds that I'm not fully kind of part of. And I think that actually has a lot to do with what I'm making now. All of the work that I make really stems from this idea that the world that we see may not actually be as we perceive it to be. We're in a world right now where so much of what we understand about one another and about the surroundings that we're in are based on our sense of sight. And it's a sense that is highly influenceable, right? So whether it's being influenced by memory, by language, by ideologies, by conventions, or even just by the fact that our eyes don't work really the way that we maybe think that they do, or maybe the way that they should, all of these things come into play. And I'm really excited about that, about saying, well, okay, if there's all of these things happening in our sense of sight, then why can we say, or how could we possibly say, that reality is really as we kind of see it? I used to try and talk about this kind of strangeness of perceiving reality by doing works that were much more from the imaginary realm. So there were stop motions, there were huge sculptures of, you know, gigantic trees and moons and things like that. Yeah, so it's really changed quite a bit when I started saying, you know what, I'm saying too much, there's too much going on. Yes, it's fun, but let's really distill and look very closely at the eye itself, which is kind of at the root of all of these experiences of the world and of all of these ideologies and knowledge kind of systems that we make for ourselves. And then the work became much more about the lens, about the camera, about you know, the still versus the moving image. It became a little bit more about your experience as opposed to what's in my head. My most recent exhibition that I'm opening right now at Joyce Yahouda Gallery in Montreal is called Staring at the Sun. And it plays directly with this idea that there are things that we see that are not actually there, or that we can't prove are actually there. And so I use the idea of the after image, which is basically when you're saturating your retina with too much light or too much of one color, and then we begin kind of hallucinating maybe the opposite color. It's highly experiential. It's much more about the viewer going in and just being totally immersed in sound and color and what that experience will do to them, as opposed to an image or something that I'm trying to show them. I'm really excited in using any technique that might actually exploit our sense of sight or exploit the ways in which our eyes function, because that kind of becomes a little bit of a playground for me to be able to insert maybe some fallacies or some things to really make you question what you're seeing. And so 3D is one of those kinds of techniques. Our eyes, of course, see in 3 dimensions, but there's something really magical about creating that from scratch. So creating that in a photograph, for instance. One of my recent series is called Constructions, and it consists of some landscapes that I've shot during backpacking trips all around the States. But what I've done is I've actually constructed these landscapes digitally, so they're not 100% what I was seeing. And if you look really closely, you can kind of notice, this mountain has been doubled, or there's something kind of happening there. Part of that, obviously, I'm thinking about the landscape and the sublime, right? So the stereotypical landscape of the human being kind of just overwhelmed by this view of the expanse of the natural kind of all around us, and how that becomes a bit of a fallacy. We're erasing some people, we're erasing some histories. There's things that are not seen. What I like doing with, or the reason why I use 3D for this series, is that it kind of enhances that. you can look at the image, you can look at the landscape without glasses on, and it remains a beautiful, you know, sublime kind of landscape, maybe with a bit of an interesting treatment happening. But the minute that you put the 3D glasses on, it becomes almost hyper-real. Like the image becomes realer than real. And so I think by doing that, I'm kind of playing with this physicality of space and physicality of perception versus like the flat image. When I went and I looked into the print atelier, I was really impressed with the roster of artists that the gallery was representing, and the level really of professionalism and of quality that was being presented. It's not a gallery where it's just about, you know, trying to sell a huge volume of pretty photos to put on your wall. It's really a space that feels as though it's opening a door to maybe new collectors, or opening a door to people to be able to maybe start their collections or discover artists online in a way that's so much easier than having to go to a physical location and then have that ability to just right away be like, you know what, I really want this, it's speaking to me, I'm gonna kind of go for it.